Today we're going to talk about percents. We're going to use them just to solve number problems today, but percent problems are used throughout our daily lives. We see sales at 30% off of a clearance sale, 25% off, 50% off. We want to make sure we get the best sale we can get, so we need to make sure that the price that they have marked on the tag is exactly what they're claiming it to be, whether it be appliances, clothes, food, you name it. Businesses use it as well, and they want to know, especially in advertising, they want to know if their sales are increasing with the use of the new advertising agency. Or is this person making a difference in our company? So percents are used a lot throughout our lives, so it's important to be able to work with them. And that's what we're going to work with today. To solve a percent problem using a proportion, and we already know how to solve proportions. We'll look again at how to solve them, but we're going to be using proportions to solve percent problems. And again, the ones we're going to deal with today deal just with numbers. The next lesson will deal with actual applications of them. Okay, to solve percent problems using proportions, these are the things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is identify the amount, the base, and the percent in the problem. We want to identify the amount, the base, and the percent. And we'll talk about those in a couple minutes. The second thing we want to do is use this proportion to set up our problem. It's going to be the amount divided by the base. The ratio amount to base is the same as the percent to 100. Now remember, the percent is based on 100. So this is going to be an equivalent relationship. This is how we change remember we divided by 100 to get rid of the percent anyway. This is what takes care of this ratio. And the other ratio again was the amount to the base. The amount to the base is equivalent to the percent to 100. Once we have our percent proportion set up, now notice we have to identify what the amount, base, and percent is in order to fill in these unknowns. So once we have this proportion set up, then we can solve the proportion for the missing value. So we're going to identify the amount, the base, and the percent, and then we're going to use this proportion, fill in the unknowns, and then solve the proportion for the missing value. That's how we're going to solve percent number problems. To solve percent number problems, we identify the amount, the base, and the percent. Then we use the proportion, amount over base is equal percent over 100. Very important that we learn this proportion. It's called the percent proportion. We're going to solve the proportion then for our missing value. The thing we need to do then is we've got to be able to identify what the percent, the amount, and the base is. That's the first step in solving a percent number problem, and that's going to be very important for us. We need to determine the percent, the amount, and the base, and that's what we're going to look at now, is how do we do that. The first thing we're going to look at is the percent, and the percent is fairly obvious. We're going to use the value that's given without the percent symbol, because the 100 in the denominator of our proportion, percent proportion, is going to take care of the percent symbol. So our percent is going to be rather obvious. Either it's going to be the number that's in the problem with the percent symbol, or it's going to be our unknown x. So it depends on which one we're dealing with, what we're asking for. Okay, the percent should be an obvious answer. The second thing we're going to look at is the base. And the base usually is our total amount in the problem, the total amount that we're given, or it may be the original amount. If we're talking about the original amount of a car, the original cost of a car, and then the markup price on the car or the depreciation on the car would be something else. what it starts at, the original amount, is usually our base. And usually it's after the word of. Whatever comes after the word of, in other words, it's what we're taking the percent of. The percent of something, that something is going to be our base. Okay, usually it's the total amount, the original amount, and in words as we're reading, usually it's after the of. Okay, usually it's after the of. Now, depending on the way the question is asked, the word of isn't always used, but it's implied, and we could probably rewrite the sentence using the word of. So the base is the total amount, the original amount, but usually it's what's after the word of. It's usually what's after the word of. Now there's only 3 blanks in our percent proportion. We talked about the percent, we just talked about the base. The last one is the amount, and that's the part that's compared to the whole. The amount is going to be the part that's compared to the whole, and usually it's what we haven't identified yet. The amount usually is whatever we haven't actually identified yet, or what's left over, what hasn't been used yet, what number in there hasn't been used. That's what the amount's going to be. So again, let's review. The percent usually is the very obvious. It's the value that's given, and we use it without the percent symbol. Okay, we use the value given without the percent symbol. The base is usually the total amount, the original amount, and usually after the word of. And the amount is the part that's compared to the whole, or what we haven't identified yet. Now let's look at. Okay, in these examples, all we want to do is identify the percent, the amount, and base of each. We want to identify the percent, the amount, and base of each. And I'm going to use a P for percent, A for the amount, and B for the base. Okay, we're going to use P for the percent, A for the amount, and B for the base. Okay, so first example, I want to find out what 20% of 320 is 64. Now remember, all I want to do is identify. I don't want to try to work anything out. I just want to identify what each part is, because that's going to be a very important step in being able to solve percent problems. So I need to identify the percent, the base, and the amount. So in this problem, 20% of 320 is 64. So the percent is usually the easiest one to find. In this one it says 20%, so the percent must be 20. The percent must be 20. The base is what we're taking the percent of. Now we're taking the percent of 320, and notice that 320 is after the word of. 320 is directly after the word of. So that means 320 is our base. Now what is 20% of 320? That's our amount. And that's our 64, and of course it's the only thing we haven't used yet. So there's our 64. So the 20%, the percent is usually very obvious. The base is what I'm taking the percent of, and I'm taking the percent of 320, so the base is 320, which leaves 64 to be the amount. Usually in the sentence it's by itself on the other word, on the other side of the word is. Okay, it's usually on the other side of the word is.